On this episode, we're doing a answers viewers questions thing. We're answering
Answers
viewer questions.
viewers
We'll
questions.
inlay the question that he asked. We had on one of our videos a viewer ask us 3 different questions. We're going to kind of go down that list and try to answer these from a law enforcement perspective. So come ride 2 men with us as we figure this out. This entire discussion is going to be obviously hypothetical. We're going to try to apply as much legal jargon and police stuff as we can.
Because you're
to
dealing
this.
with fictional characters and fictional situations. But
So the first question they posed to us was, how would we deal with a vigilante? And the vigilante specifically in question, I guess the most iconic vigilante would be Batman.
I would shake his hand.
I would probably high-five him just because it seems more personal to me than the handshake. It's a little more casual, and hopefully he remembers that.
He won't.
But
He has too many demons.
yeah, he probably does. Yeah, he probably does. But I think the best way to kind of try to break down how law enforcement would interact with someone like Batman would be to look at, he's depicted in 2 different ways. I've seen it depending on how close or far away from canon you are. Obviously, he's got a relationship with Commissioner Gordon. So I think there's 2 ways to look at this. There's the cooperative Batman, and then there's the uncooperative Batman. And by cooperation, I mean with law enforcement. There are a lot of legal issues when a person takes the law into their own hands, and because Batman is not a sworn commissioned officer asked by the state to go act on the behalf of the citizens, he's doing it on his own. I think that you have to be, yes, you can go and you can stop crime and beat guys up, but you can't put people in jail. And at that point, the problem is that there's no criminal offenses happening unless we're documenting these things. And you can't just run in and start beating people up unless someone's someone's actually a victim of a crime. If not, you're just running around beating people up. That's going to be the issue. That's going to be the issue with interacting with him as a law enforcement agency. I think the best way to try to answer this in the most realistic way is that if Batman was willing to subject himself to some level of command staff, if he had, let's just say, Commissioner Gordon, right? He's in his own, you could imagine him like a specialized unit. You have Vice, you have narcotics, you have specialized units that have a different chain of command than Patrol. They work cooperatively with Patrol and with detective assets, but they have a different chain of command. They still have to answer to ultimately the chief or the commissioner, but they do have different standard operating procedures. And where normally a beat cop would walk their beat and drive their car, they get to lurk in the shadows and go and act crime fighting. It's different, and again...
Because if that were the case, then he wouldn't be Batman.
Yes, and
because then no one would be scared of him.
Agreed.
Because the criminals would know.
The problem with this too, and this was an issue that was actually brought up, the Dark Knight series, Christopher Nolan's version of his take on Batman, they talked about the Dent Act. Spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen any of that.
If you haven't seen it, get over it.
I'm sorry.
This is
yeah. So basically, on the Dent Act, they had the DA at the time, which was Harvey Dent, which, spoiler alert, ends up being Two-Face. He can't, Batman, and it is the real issue with Batman, is Batman cannot sign a sworn affidavit. Batman cannot, due to his incognito nature, cannot act as a witness to a crime because he's not legally signing an affidavit or acting as a witness or acting as someone who can be listed in the chain of custody for evidence. And you can look up what chain of custody means for evidence. But basically, I saw alleged crime happen. I'm willing to take the stand or make a sworn statement. I, the person who I am, not somebody for me, not somebody acting in my betterment unless I'm a minor. Basically, Bruce Wayne himself would have to take the stand and present the evidence, or would have to swear that he is presenting the evidence in an honorable way. Batman can't do that. You can't wear a mask and say, "'Cause I'm Batman. I'm Batman." And say that that's why,
I mean, you can.
know. So
it's just not going to go very well.
It goes poorly when they poke a hole in that. And this is what happened with the Dent Act, is basically they realized that there was a fraud in presenting the case to ultimately the new DA's office after Harvey Dent passed. And basically every single criminal that they went to go lock up had to be released because there was no chain of custody in the information. There was fruit from the poisonous tree is a big thing that's normally cited. And so Batman poses that issue is that you see the bank robber, you, Batman, see the bank robber, swoop down there to go save the old lady, break the bank robber's back and go toss him in front of the jail, and there's no evidence of any of these crimes. You maybe have an eyewitness statement, but ultimately you don't know who enacted this violence. It's effectively an alien or an apparition when it's Batman. So
I'm still all for it.
I'm with you. I think Gotham is a hard city.
You can see it in the movies. Like they even portray it well. They know like there was zero crime going on.
Yeah.
There was nothing happening because they knew Batman was out there, and they knew the cops wouldn't do anything because they're all crooked.
And I think that Batman represents more of it's an archetype, and Batman, when it was first written back then, was that cops played by the rules and had to play by the rules, and that Batman didn't have to play by the rules.
Not the same rules. He still has his own.
And he has his own. He's got principles that he goes by, but it's not a law. It's not something that they get to vote on. It's not something that state representatives get to go or the Supreme Court gets to go and review. He just goes and says, "This is what I think justice is supposed to look like." As metal as it is, intrinsically, I think that Batman represents consequences for actions that law enforcement can't catch. And again, bringing it back to this idea of a vigilante. And I can at least give you my understanding of Texas Penal Code on that. If I am witnessing a violent felony in progress, and again, there's exigency that has to work with that. But if I am seeing let's say someone's holding up the convenience store, it's pointing a gun at somebody in defense of a third person, I, Mr. Civilian, can act on that and use force on that to try to save that person or try to, again, enforce the law. I know this is illegal. Someone's going to get hurt if nothing happens on it. I can act potentially violently if I have to, and you would be covered by the law to do that, just as law enforcement would.
You're still going to be probably
100% going to probably
most likely get arrested. Mm-hmm. And it's
again,
still going to go down that way.
They're going to do an investigation and whether or not they can
maybe
determine.
Not arrested, but for sure detained.
Detained and questioned for sure. So though I'm not going to go and advocate for vigilante justice, I will always say that I think that bad actions and unlawfulness should have consequences. I don't care if they're coming from law enforcement. I don't care if they're coming from a civilian. I like the idea that society is protected by this idea that we think that bad people should be held accountable. And that goes across the board. That's bad cops, that's bad politicians, that's bad people. Either way, I think there should be consequences for evil. And I think Batman kind of, in a way, encaptures that in some power fantasy way that there's Bruce Wayne swooping down, kicking butt and taking names.
I love it.
I like it. I think it captures something more noble about him. Again, that he's got his rules, that he believes in restorative justice. And we're going to get to our second question about the Joker. The Joker represents the absolute worst of the worst of what a criminal could be, and someone that just loves chaos and loves pain and destruction and all of these things. He likes to pick apart plans. He likes to pick apart the idea of civilized society with rules. Batman believes intrinsically that there is some good inside of him, and that's why he constantly locks him back into Arkham, hoping that he'd come back out and do something about it.
Arkham. What a joke.
Exactly. How many times did he... Clearly one of the worst
another
prisons.
Problem with Gotham.
Just another, like the worst prison ever to exist ever.
So that's the problem with Batman. You have a problem with GCPD.
Yeah.
You have a problem with the crime level in Gotham. You have a problem with the rehabilitation system as in Arkham, and then you have the Joker.
And so to kind of segue this into the second part of the question that he asked us is how would we deal with someone like the Joker? And I'm going to be honest with you.
Kill him.
Unfortunately, that's the reality of it, is that there's real no way of getting around. I don't think that you can compare the Joker to somebody like, I'll give you like El Chapo or Al Capone or anything like that.
It's different. If you're going to kill that many people...
Yeah, the issue becomes a danger to society, and there is case law. So, like, let's say you can seize a person with deadly force. It sounds silly, but you can't arrest somebody with deadly force. Or maybe I'll insert case law title here. But they're basically, if somebody is posing such an incredibly high threat to society that if I don't act immediately with deadly force to do that, other people are at risk. It's in defense of a third person is the way that it's going to be read in legal terms. Deadly force would be authorized. If I'm holding a bomb and running into a school and saying, I'm going to go blow up this school and kill everybody inside, technically it's your responsibility as law enforcement to act on behalf of society and stop that person from doing it. Somebody like the Joker, I just think most law enforcement agencies, I think Gotham as a whole is not really going to be solved. And I think that the whole point of the cartoon show is their problems can't be solved with PDs. They're woefully inadequately prepared or equipped to deal with Killer Croc or to deal with people like Scarecrow and the Penguin and Two-Face. These people have way too much in resources, way too much in money.
And for the most part, the Penguin was just a gangster.
Basically,
he was just a strange little man.
I think people like Mr. Freeze and stuff like that who have weather-changing technology, this is more for the military. And
have you seen the sympathizers with Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy?
No, I've
Where
not.
Freeze just wanted to cool down the world from global warming, and Poison Ivy just wanted to repopulate the rainforests.
I have not seen that.
Made Batman look like a villain.
Well, and again, like they said, sometimes you are the hero long enough to just become the villain. Ask law enforcement how they feel about that. The third question that was posed, and just kind of segues us into that, is mutants. And we'll use the example of X-Men because it's the easiest example we can get since we're talking about comic books. How would law enforcement, the question specifically asked also about federal agencies. I can't speak on a federal agency. I don't think you can speak on federal agencies. But I can tell you that on the state, county, and I guess parish, if that's what you are, or a municipal level, which is city level.
Anything below state law enforcement is relatively the same because they all follow state law.
Yeah, so I think that, and the question specifically asked for deadly force and how would you use that, I'm going to break that down in an even broader term, is how would the law apply to people like that? Because technically, like let's just say I have really good eyesight and let's just say everyone didn't have 20/20, what's the difference in between that and being able to read minds? Technically, or again, Michael Phelps, who's a total freak of nature physically and is able to swim and stuff like that, or runners, and the Joe Blow average person. Just because this person has enhanced abilities doesn't necessarily mean that they should be restricted from those. I think the argument can be made for anybody that understands the Second Amendment. They have a right to have these things, but as the state, we're allowed to restrict certain aspects of that and how it's used. Again, just because I have the ability with a firearm to go take a life doesn't mean I get to go do it all the time. It's been illegal for forever to murder people. It's been illegal for forever to threaten people without due cause with said weapon. I think use of force would apply similarly to if I can make ice fly out of my hands or fire fly out of my hands.
Yeah.
Or
the only problem is, again, just like the last, law enforcement's very ill-equipped to deal with anything like that.
I think the X-Men example of it is a pretty good one. Professor X does try to create a school to try to help these people kind of control it. The problem with it is that local law enforcement has zero involvement in that. I would like to see the school actually recruit some of them to actually become law enforcement so that they can help interact in a safer way that you can interact with. Imagine a kid that can light things on fire with his mind having an emotional or mental breakdown. Local PD would have no answer to that. But if you had mutants on your side, that, again, you had somebody like Jean Grey, or if you had somebody like Storm, who can literally make it rain, in that local area, you have people...
Way better than a firefighter can.
110%. You want to replace an entire city's fire department with one person? Storm's your girl.
It's Storm.
Storm's your girl.
Oh, there's a structure fire?
Yeah.
Thunderstorm.
And again, you could make the same argument, I think, as with like Magneto. It could be an entire goon squad of people trying to go and rob a bank, and Magneto could pretty much almost single-handedly solve that.
But that's why you need the cooperation.
Yeah, I think the same way Magneto ended up designing this technology to protect his mind from Professor X. I think there's real uses for that. If I'm trying to have a free and fair and impartial trial, the last thing I need is a mutant sitting in the audience manipulating, interrogating a witness or bullying a witness. It's something that we wouldn't be able to perceive, but a mutant would be able to, and possibly be able to protect not only someone's individual rights, but also the safety and security of that place. It would be impossible without mutants. And again, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think that it's not necessarily
Uncle Ben.
a system of accountability, but I think that you have to have some semblance of cooperation with whomever you're trying to coexist. And if you have extraordinary people living amongst you, they would have to participate in that larger scale. I'd want some of them to be lawmakers. I would want some of them to be teachers. I would want some of them to be cops.
We kind of saw that in X-Men when Beast was somewhat of a politician.
Yeah, and,
somewhat.
And they need to have representation. They need to have advocacy. Every group should have some level of advocacy. And I think law enforcement's probably one of the most, if not the military, diverse populations out there. And that we should represent the people. And if mutants become part of those people, they should be represented in it. And again, like I said, as far as use of force, your ability, if it's able to affect other people, there's going to be laws specifically written probably to sit there and say, if you're reading somebody's mind, that's a breach of their, privacy. If you've attained some information that way, it can't be used in the court of law. If you're going to have some sort of confession, it has to be done with the protections of some way of protecting your mind. They'd have to make certain protocol to protect you from that. And then from a law enforcement standpoint, I think trying to figure out how to identify those, and that's only going to be through mutants. So I thought it was a great question. This is a shorter video, but anytime you guys have questions, we'd like to try to apply what knowledge we do have in law enforcement to try to answer those questions for you guys. So again, if you guys have any other things clips that you want us to react to, topics you guys want us to cover, we're gonna have some other guys going down the pipeline. We have some other interviews that we're gonna try to do, and then we have some Let's Plays coming up. So please like, subscribe, share, help our channel grow so we can educate some more people. Thanks for riding 2-Man with us, and until next time, peace.